There is no denying my favorite part of any new Fortnite season is learning how to use and, if possible, abuse the newest items to the game. There are plenty of people who, every chapter, regardless of the loot pool, are going to play a shotgun, AR, shockwaves, heals, and maybe a new weapon or item like a Typhoon Blade or Void Mask. But rarely do you have someone like myself who will change their loadout 100% season to season depending on what looks the most fun. So, if you are looking for a traditional loadout, I apologize. That is not what we'll be doing here. Instead, we are going to continue to dominate our opponents with all the new stuff. Today's newest toy will be the Fire Mask. This mask reminds me of how we used to play EMPs when so very few people were using them. The effectiveness truly can be quite similar. No, it's not like we're using them for anti-vehicle. The spray weapons themselves can take care of the vehicles alone. It's more of our surprise ambush type attack. I think there is one big reason the Fire Mask has been super slept on. In the trailer, they show Kendo here using the mask on two closer range opponents who don't really do much to avoid the fireball itself. Well, if you're anything like me, you tried this early in the season, noticed how easy it was for your opponents to dodge, and said, forget this noise, and just moved on to other weapons. After all, the unofficial successor to the Twin Mag, what I call the Single Mag AR, officially known as the Hollow Twister, might actually be the best every rarity AR we've ever had in Fortnite. Ever. So this mask was pretty easy to forget. You know what else is very easy to forget this season? Shotguns. Boy, those suck right now in Zero Build. I mean, sure, the only got a slight buff, and if I'm gonna carry a shotgun, that would be my choice, but overall, they're really not my vibe, especially this season. Honestly, I never really loved shotgun play. I do think it has had some metas that were more fun than others. I like the extremes. So my two favorite shotty metas were back in Chapter 5, Season 3, Nitro Fist, Thunderburst SMG, and Combat Shotgun. Just all flowed together so nicely. It was three close to medium range options that could just be switched up with depending on the situation. It had a lot of nuance to it. I also didn't mind Chapter 4 Season 3 when we had the Havoc Shotgun and Combat SMG combo. That was one of the fastest time to kills I'd ever seen in close range, and I thought the extreme skill of a well-placed Havoc pump and the quick follow-through of the Combat SMG was just very cool because of how deadly it was. However, we don't have anything even remotely close to either of those right now. The best close range option in the game is just spamming the Typhoon Blade melee attack, so naturally you need something to combat that. And carrying underpowered shotguns and trying to line up a headshot on some maniac swinging a sword around is not the play. So how does this lead back to the Fire Mask? To start off, I noticed its insane tracking ability when I was killed one endgame. Check out this clip here. I shockwave pretty much straight vertically in the air, and the Fire Mask user shoots two shots. One follows me up and destroys me at the apex of my shock. Then they fire another shot while I'm up there, and the fireball travels up, then swoops right back down onto me as if it was assisted by gravity. It was at this moment I noticed there was some serious potential with this thing. In addition, after plenty of testing on my own, I found the Fire Mask actually plays quite a bit like a shotgun, only at more medium range, not close range. How is that? Well, a shotgun's best feature is their ability to play cover. Take a shot, then return to the safety of cover or perform some movement as to not get shot in retaliation. Sure, sometimes you have the spray meta shotguns like the Gatekeeper or the Drum, but we don't have anything like that right now. We have the pump and hide type. So why not take that concept to medium range fights? Instead of exposing yourself and standing out in the open, shoot a fireball and move. Fire it and then use the travel time it has to reposition yourself to safety. You need to trust the fireball will get to its target. Either it does and you hit them, or it doesn't and you move on. You will see a hit marker if you make contact, but your opponent is not visible on the screen, just not the damage numbers, so you have to keep an eye out for that. But you don't stand there and watch your shot when you're trying to avoid your opponent returning fire. This can make the Fire Mask one of the stronger options in closer to medium range fights, depending on the situation of course. The best way for you or your opponent to dodge a fireball is to run straight towards it and jump over it, or move to the side of it. So you want to do your best to not let them see the Fire Mask shot coming. This is something I haven't said this chapter, but pay close attention to these background examples. They really show how the Fire Mask can apply a lot of extra pressure relatively safely where other weapons could not. I basically look at this thing as a rocket launcher with a 100 damage homing missile. It works better the more distance you give it, and it really can't be spammed, but conversely does not need to be reloaded. It's a situational type item that can be used off a shockwave, off a Typhoon Blade, or just with good positioning. It is far from an end-all be-all solution to winning this season, but I think it is a very underutilized tool that you can currently use to catch a lot of people off guard. Okay, so while on the elemental topic of underused features this season has to offer, I think there is one perk that is insanely underrated, and that is the Water Boon. I don't really understand when I watch other content creators play how they don't prioritize this thing early in their games as I do. The Water Boon is incredibly busted for what it does, and I truly believe it is the best perk perk in the game. The ability to regenerate up to 100 white health and 75 shield by just needing to be standing in a small puddle of water makes the water boon the single best healing item in the game. Except it's not an item, it's a boon, meaning it doesn't take up an inventory slot. So anyone who's carrying big pots, shieldfish, water sprites, or anything other than the water boon, I truly believe you're making a huge mistake. At the time of this recording, my favorite preferred loadout is the single mag AR, shockwaves, typhoon blade, and both the void and fire masks. If rumors are true, we can expect at some point the grapple blade to return, and the kinetic blade was shown off in the trailer, so that should be coming back at some point as well. With even more mobility being added to the game, I can't imagine I will ever have a place for heals in my loadout this current season. Prioritize the water boon, it absolutely is an S tier perk to get every single game. The other boons are, yeah. Fire boon is actually my second favorite. Cutting down an already respectable reload time on the single mag AR is amazing. It really helps when fighting the island boss as well. The wind boon is cool, I'll take it if it's available and easy to acquire. The same thing with the forecast tower. I know it's not a boon, but it effectively behaves the same way. Small fetch quest, you get a perk for the rest of the game, but I treat it like the wind boon. I'll go for it when it's convenient, not gonna put myself out of position to capture it though. Last but not least, we have something that I personally do not carry in solos, and that is the void boon. After extensive testing, I am gonna go out on a limb and say that the void boon is a trap in solos gameplay. I have only ever gotten 3 to 4 pings using the void boon, 0 of those helping me secure a kill that I would have not gotten otherwise. On the opposite side of the coin, I've gotten at least the same number of kills, if not more, from people who've had the void boon and their ping gave away their general location, if not their exact one. There is one glaring weakness with the void boon. The ping range is far too small, with a secondary weakness of the ping itself being far too visible. It's a big flash of light that says, I am here. Since you will never have a bot using a boon, it is either the scanner NPC or a void boon every single time. I'm not saying it's the worst thing ever or that it can't be helpful. I just personally find it to be more harmful than helpful, and as a result will not be carrying the void boon going forward in solos. For what little teams I play, I do find it to be 100% night and day with how effective it can be. Given it activates on a knock and not an elim, coupled with the fact that teams tend to huddle together, the value it offers once you add a single teammate should be obvious, and that is not what I'm talking about here. In solos, the void boon is a trap. I would leave it behind. Okay, so we have our overall game plan. How does this get us those sweet, sweet wins that we also desperately crave? Well, the plan is pretty simple, honestly. Ideally, you'd want to land on a Typhoon Blade right off the start. I would say I land on one nearly every game. Whether it wants to spawn at that particular location is up to the game itself. I like to land at either Flooded Frogs, Shogun Solitude, or this island on the southeast part of the map. Each of these locations has 2 potential Typhoon Blade spawns, making it very likely at least one of them will spawn in. But even if you aren't able to land on one of these locations conveniently, or if you just prefer landing uncontested at an unnamed POI, you really don't have to worry. Typhoon Blades spawn out of regular chests a bit over 3% of the time, and out of blue chests just under 10% of the time. So if you loot a few POIs, your chance of just finding one randomly are honestly pretty good. Not to mention the fact that you can just kill someone and pick up theirs, or come across one in the pile of loot late game. Once again, I really do my best to make this the first thing that I get, as it truly helps the entire game plan flow together. The Typhoon Blade is without a doubt the jetpack of the season in my eyes. Not that it's quite as powerful, but that once you get one, your combat potential opens up tremendously, as well as your ability to defend yourself against someone who is also carrying one. From here, you just want to loot up best you can. Find at least a green single mag AR, hope to luck into a fire mask, and just keep going. Between random elemental chests and just general looting, I tend to find my full loadout by zone 2 almost every game. I would say the Void Mask is the single most rare piece of the puzzle, and it's honestly the least impactful for me. If I can't find a Void Mask, I typically will carry a second stack of shockwaves or some other type of utility. Bushes or bunkers are a fine substitute until a Void Mask makes an appearance for you to grab. If I run the entire game with just shocks and the Typhoon Blade as my mobility, I don't really care that much either. Make sure you are on your way to the Sprite Altars if you haven't acquired a water boon by this part of the game. I typically don't want to have to look for one after zone 3, as at that part I'll be looking for people to kill and waiting for island to spawn. Island spawns in at 4th zone just as it has for the past couple of chapters, and I find it's very nice to get up there as quick as possible, since if you can't just speedrun the boss, it can be killed pretty quickly. About 45 seconds is my record. Here's a clip of me doing that. If we can be there to kill the island boss, I'm taking basically everything that he drops. I want the medallion, blade, and the fire mask. Now that we're fully kitted, we are ready for the end game. You will typically want to stay up on the island as long as possible. We do have a sniper rifle in our hands after all in the single mag AR. Its ability to tap fire and hit enemies from literally as far as the eye can see is an extremely powerful feature that should not be ignored. While people can fire back at you, most of the time, the way that the island is positioned, you are in a far better better vantage and can simply back up to avoid most angles. Where if someone gets caught out in the open versus someone who has an angle on them from the island, it is often up to the island player to miss enough of their shots for the player on the ground to survive. The only time grounded players really have a chance is if the island spawns near mountains. In that case, people on top of those mountains can fire back pretty effectively. Once the storm eats the islands up, all good. Just take the updraft surrounding the islands, try to get as much lift as possible, and then just use that to carry yourself to the next zone. With the invisibility / stamina medallion, I think taking a car with you from here on out is kind of hit or miss. Sure, it's nice to have the protection. However, it's much easier to find someone who is in a car versus a partially invisible player who makes far less noise and won't show up as far on visual audio. Most of the time, I recommend skipping out on vehicles from here and just playing zone and position. My strategy from this point forward is to basically never stop sprinting if possible. This is how we abuse the medallion to its fullest. If you have the wind boon, now is a great time to utilize it, as sprinting with your pickaxe out absolutely gives you a nice little speed boost. Coupled with this medallion, it is very reminiscent of the nitro medallion, giving you extra speed and infinite stamina, now with a little active camo thrown into the mix. Side note, when we leave island, I like to break the endgame into two parts: sword conservation and sword spam. When I am running around mostly trying to be hard to hit and unseen, I will do this with either the aforementioned pickaxe out when we have the wind boon, and other times I'll just have my trusty old single mag out, mostly ignoring the typhoon blade. I know the blade is the most logical thing to pair our infinite sprint with. I just think that it is wasteful, and even though the island blade has more durability, I honestly don't know what the exact difference is between the mythic typhoon blade and the regular one is, but I still don't want to waste it entirely before we get to our final few fights. After we get down to say the top 5 or so is when I will pull the blade out and swap off only when the situation calls for it. But infinite sprint, some invisibility, and the typhoon blade alone can be enough to win a game from this point forward. Adding in shockwaves and our fire mass strategies from earlier, with the backup of our single mag AR, you are in an extremely dominant position to win from here. I've actually only lost in this endgame with this loadout one time, and that's because I got tunnel visioned into the sword and didn't use my other resources. So as long as you always keep your mind open to other options that this loadout gives you, I truly believe that this is not only one of the most fun ways to play Chapter 6, but one of the most dominant as well. That is the best thing about this season, is you really can play any number of styles, weapons, and loadouts that you find success with. Please consider trying my preferred items and methods and report back. I would love to know how this works for other people. If you made it this far, please give us a like, comment down below what you think of our take on Chapter 6. Consider sharing with a friend who you think would enjoy a rather unorthodox approach to zero build. We stream on Twitch at least a few times a week, so please consider following us over there. Link is in the description. Appreciate you so much for watching. The support means the absolute world to us. Thank you, love you all, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.